So if I can give you an idea of what's in the course, then hopefully you'll be armed with the right information. So, week 1, we have a look at UK statistics, which is some of the statistics I've just given you, and local stats as well. Really, we want to reduce the myths about what's going on nationally and locally, so that parents are informed about what they're up against locally and nationally. We have a look at what's communicated to our children about the misuse of drugs, and within that, what messages parents give to their children. For example, do you immediately reach for the painkillers if you've got a headache? That's a message that you're giving to your children. Do your children see you at 7 o'clock opening a bottle of wine and pouring a glass and saying, oh, I need this to de-stress? That's a message that parents are giving to their children that they probably mostly don't consider is a harmful message, or could be a harmful message. So we have a look at some of those things that we communicate as parents to our children. And then we also have a look at what's communicated through the media, and helping children to separate fantasy from reality by talking to them about the media messages as well. Session 2. We have a look at what it actually means in practice to love unconditionally, to love children unconditionally. For example, if you've got a teenage child and you pick them up from a party and they're obviously been drinking, what message do you give to them? You might feel angry at them, but how do you communicate to them? What message do you give them? So what does it actually mean in practice to love your child unconditionally? Then we have a look at some of the risk and protective factors around substance misuse. A risk factor would be something that might cause a child to be more vulnerable or susceptible to drug misuse, such as a family breakdown. And a protective factor would be practical and emotional support given by parents or other adults to help a child resist unhealthy behaviour. So such things as strong social networks and family networks and other supporting adults. And we also have a look at happiness, asking the parents who's responsible for your happiness. I think we've all heard parents say, if the kids are happy, then I'm happy. And so we challenge the parents to look at the factors that affect their own happiness, not to put undue pressure on their children to make them responsible for their happiness. And also providing a good role model for their children in terms of happiness, where they go for their happiness, how they get their happiness. And as part of that, taking time as parents to recharge and refuel. And I think the buzzword is me time, which is, I don't like as an expression because it sounds selfish, but the idea is, as a parent, recharging, refueling, and setting that example to your children as well. Okay, I'm going to take a very quick breather and give you a handout, which is something that we use in the course about parenting styles. And just have a read through of this. Not all of you, I recognise, will be parents, but all of you had parents, and all of you can have a think when you read this handout about how your parents, what their parenting style was, and maybe how that might have affected you. And as you have a read through that, you might want to discuss it with the person sitting next to you just briefly, what you think the drawbacks and benefits of the parenting styles might be. Okay, so just a couple of minutes to read through that. As I say, this is something that we do actually use in session 3 and can be quite good for prompting discussion.
which is obviously the positive part. Guilty, which we need to know. I mean, other people do fall that silly. I mean, sometimes they do. Although sometimes there's a bit of a...
Interestingly, when I did this, when I was being trained, for most of us that were being trained, this made us think of how our parents had been to us and not what we were like as parents. And it did bring up within the group that were being trained quite a few, sort of thoughts and feelings about, our own childhood. And I think that's how a lot of parents or people look at it. They think, oh, I recognise my parents in that, and either that was good or that was bad. And, so that can make for quite an interesting session and quite an in-depth session as well, where people are actually able to discuss how they were parented and how that affected them, and that makes them think about their own parenting styles and how that might affect their children.
It's probably worth asking at this point if even grandparents can get involved, because I think they are quite heavily involved in family relationships.
Yeah, absolutely no reason why grandparents couldn't do this course even if they were that heavily involved. Yeah. Okay, so I'll move on. So then in session 3 we go on to look at independence, at letting go of children, and at what stage and at what age is it right to let go. For example, at what age is it appropriate for a child to ride a bike to school on their own? And the important thing to say at that point is that there aren't any right or wrong answers, because every child and every family is different. And for one child it might be fine to ride a bike to school on their own when they're 9, and for another child it might not be till they're 13 or 14 because they just haven't got the road sense, or you wouldn't trust them to do that. So we look at independence. When do we give our children their independence? Also during this session we get very practical about alcohol and look at some information on what alcohol does to the teenage brain and body, and that's a very important session, I think, for parents to think about the actual effects of alcohol on the teenager. How much is safe to drink? Is there a safe level at all? And then looking at that and taking into account the parenting style, the discussions about independence and the effects of alcohol on the teenager, we then move on to look at, in the light of that, when is it safe for a young person to make decisions about alcohol themselves? Is it safe? Or as parents, do parents need to be holding on to that and keeping that responsibility and making the decisions? And actually challenging parents to think about, am I letting my child make those decisions too early? Do I need to hold on to that? So that's quite an important session in terms of parents actually making some decisions about how they parent their child or teenager in that way. Okay, session 4, 6 keys to communication. If you wanted to know what the 6 keys to communication are, they are creating opportunities, active listening, paraphrasing, using I statements. For example, instead of "you never listen to me," I feel frustrated when I think you aren't listening to me. Empathy and being aware of your child's world. For example, do you know their friends' names? Are you aware of everything that's going on with them? And then we go on in session 4 to actually look at some problem-solving models and how we might address specific problems within a family.